Hello fans of Wheelchair Gang, Tharries here, and welcome back to another installment in this series that I'm affectionately dubbing Tharries Theories. It's where I talk with geek rambles over all the latest theories and discuss all the latest stuff to do with Doctor Who. You guys seemed to really enjoy it last time, so we thought we'd do another one about our theories and thoughts on Doctor Who Flux after episode 1 had aired. But before we get into it, if you could do me a teeny tiny little favour and click that subscribe button. We are trying to get to 10k by the end of the year. If we could get there, I would absolutely love you forever. Also, quick shout outs to Jason Peace, Debs Iona, Simon Ashley, Shane Smith, Patrick Mewson, and Ree Kevin. If you want to become a member, feel free to do so. It really helps out. You get exclusive posts, shout outs in every video, and even your own badge and custom emojis to use during live streams. So let's talk firstly about what we thought about the episode. I'll start with you first. What did you think about Doctor Who Flux, the Halloween apocalypse?
Oh, everyone thinks that I'm a little bit mad for saying this, especially people on Twitter. I'm not quite sure about what you found because I loved it. And I think I even said, prepare for a backlash. That I think this is probably Chibnall's in my top 3 of openings of that era. In fact, top 2. So fantastic.
I'm in agreement with you there, pretty much. Genuinely, I think it's one of the strongest things he's ever written for the show generally, and that's speaking generally, so I guess that's high praise. But there was a few things about it that I've said before, I've said in like various little review reaction bits that I've done for the channel that like set this apart in a way that I really appreciated, and it was almost like he'd listened to some of my specific criticism. Really odd, but I did feel that, like, for a first thing, something I've had an issue with for a long time, the scale. I felt that despite sometimes some episodes having big premises, it feels quite small scale. So for example, Revolution, you have this massive Dalek invasion, but you only really ever see Sheffield or wherever it's meant to take place. And I feel like it feels quite confined to that area. Whereas with this, you see planets getting wiped out, you see civilizations getting wiped out, you see multiple characters spread across multiple parts of like the galaxy and all that sort of stuff. A massive threat. So scale-wise, he absolutely fixed that. And also, I guess, with the characters as well, I thought that they've definitely developed the Doctor and Yaz's dynamic way more, which is something I'm very much appreciative of. And I thought Dan was a really compelling character from the off, which I really appreciated. Not perfect, but better is what I would say.
No, not perfect. I'm not going to claim that it is, but I just loved it so much. I loved it. I even went back to watch it a second time.
I did that as well.
Did you? I'm glad. Yeah, because I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a purely, it's back and that's why I'm excited. It wanted it to be a genuine love of at least of the episode, rather than me just being so excited that it's actually back.
I will say, like, some of my enjoyment of this episode does hinder somewhat on how they wrap things up to a certain degree. I do feel as though if some of the resulting things from this don't work out well or aren't resolved, I feel like I will look back at this a little less fondly, because a lot of it is just setting up stuff. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the stuff that it sets up is really cool, but it is still a lot of that, and I feel like it does hinge somewhat on how it's continued. I felt very similarly with Spyfall Part 1 when that came out. Was that like a year and a half ago? Like whenever that was, that feels ages ago. I mean, it feels like ages ago, but no time at all. But like that, I enjoyed that at the time, but it did go down in my estimation once we saw what followed it and what resulted from it. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen this time around. I'm hoping they can stick the landing.
Yeah, I think you're right to think that as well. I think when we've had so many, I'm not just talking about the Chibnall era in this. Actually, I'm talking about all of them, because we had things like Rise of the Cybermen, fantastic, and then Age of Steel, it was a bit like, and then you have World Enough for Time and the Doctor Falls, and it's like World Enough for Time's brilliant, and then I won't even get into Hellbent. So I can totally understand why there'll be people like yourself and like me that are a bit skeptical or cynical about how it will go. But just judging from this first episode alone, it got me back excited, and I've not had that. So I agree with you. I think that it's definitely one where it's going to have to, if you can keep it up, then brilliant. But I found myself, because a lot of people were saying, it's chopping and changing and we're going to here, there and everywhere. I love that, because I'm like chaos anyway. So I love that that kind of thing. And I found myself smiling, which with every single scene.
Yeah, I will say, like, I did feel like a lot was going on, and it'll be interesting because I think there are some scenes where it's like, is that relevant to this episode specifically? By which I mean mainly the 18th century Liverpool scene with the tunnels. Didn't feel like that was very relevant to anything going on.
I know.
It was like, I feel like you could have cut that scene out and lost very little for this episode specifically. Obviously, I understand it probably factors into next episode, but if that's the case, then just have it in episode 2. You know what I mean? Where it would probably fit better. Because as it stood, it just felt a bit weirdly out of place. And I was like, maybe cut that. But like, even though I have that as an issue, it didn't negate my enjoyment of the episode. I think, you know, ultimately I had a fun time watching it, and it actually did leave me with questions and hope for it going forward, which is kind of the most dangerous thing it can do in a sense, because it gets your hopes up. But also, I suppose I just appreciated that I was able to enjoy something from this run, because I haven't really since, well, arguably, as I said, like Spyfall Part 1, because like I felt Revolution, while it had some good ideas, like it very much squandered a lot of its good ideas. So I kind of, all I saw when I looked at that episode was kind of bits of missed potential here and there. Whereas like with this, I felt like because we've got those 6 episodes, I felt that they've got enough time to expand upon everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that this 6th episode, don't know what conversation I was getting into there. This 6th episode thing is a fantastic format, and I wish they'd done it before. Now, I don't feel like I'm speaking too soon in that either, because it's something that I've wanted for a while, especially in the time that we've not had Doctor Who. I've gone back and watched Classic Who, and that format just seems to work brilliantly for really great in-depth storytelling. I agree with you, there's a lot going on, and that 18th century scene was very Moffat-esque in my opinion. It was
the whole episode was very Moffat-y in my mind.
I mean, starting from the cold open to even more cold threads going here, there, and everywhere. But what I found, you did actually say something really interesting, is that you said, you know, we'd got to see this development and it was everywhere, but we got to see little bits and we didn't know how relevant they were. I actually really, really liked that. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because I felt like there was a lot of things, like you said, to think about. There's a lot of questions. And if you're not asking questions and not having fun, then I don't feel like it's a show for me.
No, you are right. Like, it does give you questions for the rest of the series. And like, ultimately, you do want that. You do want something keeping you there, keeping you invested. Yeah. So I do agree that can achieve that. You know, I'm going to be, you know, obviously I was going to watch next week anyway, let's be honest. You know, I was going to watch all of this regardless of its quality. But it has actually got me wanting to watch the next episode.
Oh, me too.
It was a feeling I didn't honestly think I was going to have going in. Like, because I will say, like, the last thing I'll say before we get into some of the, like, theories that other people have had and their thoughts, I felt like this series was going to feel more like an obligation to me to get to the thing that I'm really hyped for, which is RTD stuff, you know, and like all that sort of cool stuff that's coming. Actually, I found that this, okay, it's not the ideal Doctor Who. There's some issues with it. The exposition's still not quite there. There's some, you know, scenes that perhaps don't quite work in the episode, or maybe, you know, there's just like, you know, like little things that I take issue with still. And I agree with a lot of the criticism that it has had, but if it's fun to watch, ultimately, that's all I really want from it at this point. You know, that's all I need from it now, you know, because we know the show's safe anyway. So, you know what? Go for it, you know? Like,
pull out everything. I don't mind, But I can't wait to hear these theories.
So this one is from The Squire, and it says the 2 extra TARDIS doors are going to lead to different destinations. Something's going to happen to the TARDIS. The Doctor will fall through one of the doors, maybe to where Vinda is. Yaz and Dan will fall through another, maybe to the past, or like Earth with tunnels. So that's our first one. I actually, you know, I really like that. I think actually that's a really effective way of using the TARDIS's current state and weaving it into the narrative in a really cool way. So I quite like that. Yeah,
I mean, if there wasn't so much going on already, I would say, let's go down that route. And actually, I would love it if they went down that route. I think that's a great idea. I think, like you said, with the current state of the TARDIS, I mean, oh, bless her, she's dying. It reminded me actually a little bit of Journey into the Centre of the TARDIS and Flatline, where everything was just a bit skew-iff, and I really enjoyed those episodes. So, I feel like that would be a great idea. I'd love to see that.
It's really cool that they're actually using the TARDIS and actually exploring it more and what it can actually be in terms of a storytelling like device, because they haven't really delved a lot with the TARDIS in this era, really. Comparative to some others, mainly Moffat. Moffat like to do things with the TARDIS quite a bit. Mostly in this era, it's kind of just used as their transport. You know, it's kind of just, this is the thing we use to get to A to B. And that's fine. But I really like that it's featuring more as like a narrative little subplot here, rather than just being, it's just the TARDIS, because that's what it is. You know, it's nice for it to actually have a thing going on.
Yeah, I mean, when you were saying earlier about you felt like Chibnall almost heard what you wanted from the show, I felt that about the TARDIS, because I love to see the TARDIS as a character, as, you know, the Doctor cannot be without her. The TARDIS can't be without the Doctor as well. So that was something that was really lacking for me in previous series.
I'd be interested to see like how else it factors in, because a point I really wanted to bring up quickly was the ending scene where we see the time vortex is used against the Flux and it's completely ineffective. And I loved that. I thought it was such a great way of establishing and communicating to the audience, okay, this Flux is more dangerous than anything we've seen. Even if you're not really a fan of Doctor Who, you know, you know that the TARDIS is meant to be the like big powerful machine the Doctor travels in. So to have the TARDIS be rendered so ineffective so quickly by the Flux, I think was a really effective way of establishing the threat that it provides. Our next theory is from Robert K, and it says Vinder's ship is called Rose. If he is from another universe, it could be Rose's universe. So if her dad became the leader of Pete's world, if he died, Rose would become the leader. So let's say that Pete died, Rose is now the leader. Vinder's ship is named after her in her honor. Also in the new comic, Rose is sort of a queen. So, and that's where it ends. So this one is quite elaborate. There's quite a few steps to this. Like I will say with this, and it's a great theory, I'm not going to say don't theorize or anything, but I do think we as fans have a compulsion that whenever we see something that could vaguely be like something else from the show's past, we're like, it's that, you know. And I feel like with Rose especially, there's rumors about her returning practically every series. It's one of those evergreen ones that always happens, and it will happen eventually, because everything always does happen eventually. But with this specifically, I do like the idea of the parallel universe being reintegrated, because logically, if the Flux was to destroy this universe, as it's kind of implied to in episode 1, logically, it's not just going to stop at this universe, is it? Like, it would probably find a way to infect other universes, which we know are a thing. And one of those other universes is Pete's world, Rose's world that she lives on now. It makes more sense for her to return now than it probably has at any other point.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
I'm still not going to hold my breath on that on the basis that it happens all the time, you know?
I know. And I think that would actually be the right decision. As much as I do love Rose, I'm not a 10 Rose person, but I love Rose. But it was all kind of done.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And once I'm done with somebody or a story or, you know, whatever, and don't get me wrong, I loved seeing her as Bad Wolf. That was great. And that actually tied everything up for me in a lovely little bow. But to see her again, it would scream fan service. I would love it, but it wouldn't be authentic, if that makes sense. It wouldn't feel like it was she was meant to be there. But I'm still not against it. Any time to see Rose would be lovely. And yes, I did catch that, and I did give myself a little squeal, because you just can't. It's like, even if any character wouldn't even have to be Tennant said, I don't want to go, you still have that feeling, don't you?
This might be quite a hot take, I don't know. But I feel relatively burnt out by RTD nostalgia. Like, I feel as though there's a lot of it in the multimedia stuff, a lot of it in Big Finish, a lot of it in comics, a lot of it in, and that's great. That's wonderful. But it is starting to feel a little bit overexposed. And with the actual guy returning himself next year, I almost just feel like, just let RTD do RTD. Let this be its own thing. You know what I mean?
It's got it under control. It's fine,
You know, and that's not me saying RTD should, you know, bring back all his characters either. But I'm just saying, why try and be the RTD era when you've literally got a new RTD era coming? Exactly, I'd much prefer for this series, and it seems like they are doing this, to be fair.
Yeah.
Focus on what you've set up and what you want, the story you want to tell, and don't keep bringing in, we'll bring in Rose, we'll bring in Martha, Donna, anyone else, Donna, but I think just let this be its own. Obviously, I'm not saying that you shouldn't theorize about Rose coming back, and theorize about whatever you want. But I just think from a show perspective, I kind of just think, since we're getting RTD soon anyway, at this point, it might as well just do what it wants to do and be what it wants to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like I'm giving a motivational speech to Doctor Who, like, be what you want to be. You can do anything you want. But that's genuinely how I feel about that. But good theory nonetheless, and it was something
great,
picking up on.
Awesome theory. Like I said, I caught the name, but I would never have thought to elaborate it that far, and that's brilliant that you did. So fantastic.
There's a couple more things I want to run over. So the first one is the scene in which the Doctor and Yaz land in what can only be described as a bed together. That's gotten THASMIN people racing about that as a possibility. And I don't know how we both feel about this. I don't know whether we feel the same or different about this, but I just want to briefly get your thoughts on it now, because I feel like I might have a slightly different thought to you, and I'd be interested to see.
I am so surprised by my own reaction. I've actually made a video on this, and I've been very, very, very clear that I was not 100% with the idea of THASMIN for so many reasons, mainly because I hate relationship between companion and Doctor. However, I also said that if they are going to go down that route, I just want to know that it's authentic and that I feel it.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I was that excited was because on my rewatch, and initially I saw it and I was like, I'll see what you've done there. Okay, no problem. But on my rewatch, and the way they interacted, I was like, oh, this might actually be a thing. And I really felt it. Now, I know the whole, THASMIN stan community would have been absolutely just a buzz with excitement, I think. And, that's great. That's great. Like I said, if I could get a fleshed out character and they want to, but I will say this, I feel like it's going to be a Yaz loving the Doctor and not it being reciprocated, because I find Jodie's Doctor asexual. I don't know why.
I'm in the same
boat. But that's, I
agree with what you said. For me, though, I almost felt that the way they went with Yaz's character kind of implied to me that Yaz was going to have more of a building resentment for the Doctor than an actual love. The reason I say that is because throughout the episodes, you kind of get the implication that Yaz is kind of fed up of the Doctor's BS. For lack of a better term, that's the only way you can describe it. She's like, why don't you ever tell me anything? Why do I have to do this? Just tell me what's going on. And I feel like that frustration is only going to grow with time. And I almost feel as well, like in the initial scene we got with Yaz and Dan, there was quite a bit of conflict between those two. But, I felt as though it's possible they could be setting up a rivalry between those two. Not like a full-on negative rivalry, but I could see Yaz becoming a little bit envious and a little bit jealous of all the attention the Doctor gives Dan, perhaps. And I'm thinking, I don't think that this series is going to end with Yaz and the Doctor being super close best friends like they were what we saw in the opening. I could be wrong on that, and I think it could be redeemed in the specials, but just treating the series as its own thing, I don't think we're going to leave these characters in the same place that we found them, as just really close, really tight. I don't know, there's just a number of things that maybe go, you're kind of fed up with this, aren't you?
No, I'm not laughing at you. It's just the way you describe it. It makes sense to me, Yeah,
and it's I'm just not sure whether that's the right circumstance for a romance to even develop. I mean, to be fair, relationships can be built on bad foundation. But I don't know, I just felt as though that wasn't really the direction they were going in. I could be wrong. But
no, it's really funny you say that. And the reason I laughed is because of when you said, it's like she has a resentment. And I understand that and I agree with you, but it made me think about my own relationship. And how I say to my partner, you're doing my head in, or why are you making me do this? Or and it's little things. And even at the time, my partner was watching it with me and he said, that's like a lover's tiff going on there. And he wasn't even that he didn't even really know that THASMIN was ever even speculated. I do also agree with your theory that, or idea, that they might not end up being as close as they once were.
Yeah.
And that's okay as well. You don't have to idolize the Doctor like previous companions have.
Yeah.
Because they can be magical and the experience can be magical, but it doesn't mean that you have to, like how Sarah Jane did or like how Rose did. You know, I didn't want that. So I think you might be right.
Yaz started out in the position of, this is great, the Doctor's the best person in the world, everything's wonderful with through 11 and 12. But over time, I think the cracks are starting to show. I think, if anything as well, they've kind of shown that Yaz has really changed through this, and perhaps not even for the better, necessarily. Like, I do feel as though she's become a bit more cold to, like, human, like, experience and stuff. Like, you know, thinking about it from Dan's perspective, he's in a cage, locked up on an alien spaceship. What the hell's going on? This woman goes in, basically kind of dismisses all of his questions and lets him out without a second thought. That's not me trying to spin Yaz in some negative way, but I think it has almost detached her a bit from humanity a little bit. And I think Dan might actually remind her, hey, this is what being a human's like, you know, after so long with an alien. I think that could be a thing that happens.
Great idea. Fantastic. Oh, that wouldn't have even entered my head. That's a brilliant, that's a great idea, because I think you're right. And as you were talking, as you were saying that, I noticed myself that if you spend enough time with, you know, an alien flying around doing all these experiences no human would ever do, or has done so far anyway, you know, your personality would change. And it actually made me think of Jackie when Rose was back and she said, you're going to be some strange woman on some strange planet a million miles from Earth, and she's not even human. And that really resonated with me. And as you were talking, I was thinking, that we can actually, because we didn't really see that with Rose, but we could. I think that's really a good thing to explore with the character. I think Yaz might be a perfect one for it.
I want to talk a bit quickly about the theory that the swarm is something to do with maybe the Doctor's original species, and or something to that effect. So, like, she's related to that species in some way, because if you look at their costume, it looks very, very similar to what we see the Timeless Child in. And as much as, like, you can say that there's no evidence for it, there are bits that imply that there's a long history that goes back with them, and I do wonder if that's where they're going to go with it. Now, it's not guaranteed. They could just be friends of the division or something, which I personally prefer, but I do think that's a possibility that we have to ready ourselves for. The other thing I'll say on it is that it would be really underwhelming if we waited all this time to see what the Doctor's true origins were, and they go, they were just some diamond people. That's it. That's what you get. Like,
fuming. You might have noticed I was kind of bracing myself as you were saying it, because I was hoping that I was the only one that thought that would be a thing. I like the idea of, like, strong word. I like the idea that there is something other than what we know, and that even the Doctor herself doesn't remember.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go as far to say that I think the Timeless Child works, because I'll be very, very clear that I don't think it does, but very interesting point that you say. And I think, and I hope it's something to do with the division, because it would explain Gat, it would explain Ruth, it would explain why the Fugitive Doctor even became the Fugitive Doctor.
Yeah.
But our final fight has begun. I was itching to know more about that, and had to really stop myself from giving a little Google just in case I came across something that I didn't want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you have it, the next Tharries theories. What are your theories for Doctor Who Series 13 Flux after episode 1? Comment down below, let me know, and I will see you later.